Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today to talk about how to capture and capitalize on this year's holiday traffic. I am so delighted to have a panel of brilliant minds here today to share all of their knowledge with you. Today's webinar is actually sponsored by some of the top manufacturers of the Buyer's Edge platform. One of the main factors that makes the Buyer's Edge platform the strongest GPO in food service, along with our technology offerings, is the strength of our manufacturer contracts. The contracts that we have with the industry's top manufacturers are specially designed to provide rebates and savings on the products that matter most to restaurants and food service operators. Our partners and clients have the benefit of utilizing over 450 plus extendable contracts across so many categories. So we're really lucky to have them and their knowledge to share during these times. Before we jump in and tell you about who we're talking today, just a couple of quick housekeeping. The first is that this is being recorded and will be sent to you following today's webinar. If you have any questions, and I hope that you do, use the Q&A feature in the GoToWebinar. You can list your questions there. If there's someone in particular you want us to ask the question to, just give your name. And also pay attention to that chat feature. We are going to be sharing some very useful links from our panelists to help you out. So keep your eye on that chat, and also feel free to talk to each other in that space. There are operators on this webinar today from single unit to 20 plus, so this is really a great space and opportunity to ask each other questions and idea share. Okay, so back to our topic on how to capture and capitalize on this year's holiday traffic and who we're chatting with. We have Chef Rob Wallauer, the corporate chef at Unilever Foods. Chef Rob is a pretty amazing guy, been in the culinary world since age 16, starting from weighing dough in a pizza shop all the way up to some of America's finest kitchens, including legendary Gotham Bar and Grill in New York City. Chef Rob is trained at the French Culinary Institute and is going to be a fantastic culinary mind perspective for us today. So save your culinary focused questions for him. We also have Damian Smith, who is the Director of Marketing and Communications for Yelp in Boston. Really excited about his 20 years of experience in driving business results through technology use. He has so much experience with working with local business owners and leveraging Yelp's community and free tools to really make a big impact for their customers. And we have Mark Ledisky, currently Director of Operations at Virtual Dining Concepts. He is bringing with us 30 years of knowledge in the food service, restaurant, hospitality industry. His background is quite vast, from working with large hotel brands like Marriott to consulting firms, into his most recent passion, which is working with virtual dining and ghost kitchen in that market segment. So Mark has a lot of knowledge on creating new and helping existing brands expand and operate in that virtual method. And our final panelist is Chris Wolf, Strategic Insight and Planning Lead at Marlin Network. Chris has over 20 years of experience in tracking emerging customer opportunities and leveraging that insight into strategy, innovation, and brand development for multinational companies like PepsiCo, Tyson, McDonald's, and Walmart, and so many more. He is currently applying all of his amazing food expertise on client projects and going to share a lot with us today. So with all of that, you must be very excited to hear what they have to say. So let's dig into some of our questions. First question I'd love to kick us off with is for Chris to help frame up our topic. Do you have any statistics or insight into what holiday traffic predictions are for restaurants this year? Whether holiday traffic is going to be up, down, the same?
Sure. Yes, and we've looked at some fresh research just in recent weeks. As you know, some things have kind of changed out there. And the bad news part is that over half of people say they will be traveling less for the holidays, and over 2/3 of them say that they're going to have smaller family gatherings than they were originally planning. That same number plans to stay home more this winter, they say, overall, with fewer plans to go out shopping and dining. The upside good news is that they will be ordering more things online, products online, shopping online. They already during COVID started doing more takeout and delivery from restaurants. So we can expect that they're going to do a lot of that. So the nature of the traffic will change. In fact, based on what it is in other years where consumers may have done more home cooking and things, they've sort of gotten tired of that in recent months. So we're hoping and expecting that those consumers who say they're going to stay home are going to do what they've been doing, which is all the takeout and delivery.
That's awesome. I can relate to the cooking burnout. I feel like we've already made Thanksgiving dinners as like trying to be fun. So next week really doesn't feel that exciting. But any marketing ideas for these operators that you can share that can really help them promote some of their fun things they're doing this for the holidays?
Yeah, two things to keep in mind, knowing that budgets will be limited in terms of how much restaurants can spend right now on marketing, getting the word out. The good news is that some of the most affordable ways to get the word out are also some of the most effective these days, those being social media and email. So the thing to remember on social media, hopefully for any restaurants out there that weren't necessarily doing a lot before COVID, they found that to survive, they needed to do more of that. So making sure your websites are up to date, your Facebook, your Instagram, Twitter, your Yelp page, and making sure that you're posting regularly on that with lots of features, events, things to bring people in, talking about the story, hashtags, everything you can do to just keep reasons for people to keep reposting and telling others and more people coming in. You want to do that. And then email lists, if you have those, you want to communicate regularly, send out creative ideas about new menu items and invitations to come in. You really want to work that right now. And any community involvement you're planning to do is another way to get the word out and bring people in.
Wonderful, thank you. Chef Rob, as COVID numbers climb entering these winter and holiday months, a lot of operators are forced back inside, maybe even facing possible closures pending state restrictions and their capabilities. So curbside and takeout will be kind of what operators continue to hold on to. So what can you suggest to an operator who has a menu that really isn't built for or meant to be a takeout style menu, such as those high-end concepts, to make sure that guests that are ordering for them keep ordering and don't lose interest or get disappointed from their experience?
So when it comes to looking at engineering your menu for takeout and delivery, you really need to understand perceived value of what you deliver to the guest. And if that perceived value came more for the dining room experience, then you really need to take a look at your menu items and execute them with perfection. You have to spend a lot of time looking at the packaging and how you assemble your dishes for takeout. If you're gonna take dishes that you are known for and try to just put them into a takeout box and have it sent home, that perceived value is going to be diminished. Your guest isn't going to come back for that experience. But if you change it dramatically, or not so dramatically, but just subtly for takeout, so they maintain that perceived value and that sort of understanding of what you do. So if it's just changing the dishes slightly to family portions and then sending along, I think a handwritten note, if you are a higher end, is an amazing way to make a connection with one of your customers, particularly if it's a repeat customer. If they didn't order a cocktail or wine to go, putting in wine pairing suggestions with those dishes if you're higher end, subtle things like that, and even little prep instructions on how to reheat and then to plate your dish. And it was funny, I had a friend in Chicago who switched over to a Michelin star restaurant for their takeout, and when he brought it home, he plated it up and took a picture on it and tagged them on Instagram, and they saw it, responded to it, and then it started this whole thing. So even, you know, it just strengthened the relationship he had with that restaurant, I'm sure other people. So there's ways to stay engaged with your customers and to please them. And really the handwritten note for me, the first time I got one, thanking me for supporting them in the spring, really blew me away. And, you know, I was already a friend of the restaurant, but it endeared me to them further. So we're in the hospitality business. Even though we're doing takeout and delivery, you have to remember that aspect of it. So it's beyond just the menu. It's still how you serve and treat your guests.
That's awesome. Thank you. Yeah, a colleague of mine is also on this call, and we have a Guatemalan restaurant that we adore, and they're very small, so you have to go there personally to pick up the items. But whenever we go there, the woman giving the food, just her personality pours at you, and that is the sole reason that we both keep going back, because we love seeing them and just that personal human touch that she adds. So definitely important to keep the hospitality element going. Damien, in your experience, what do you think patrons are most looking for from their dining experience right now?
Yeah, I mean, as Rob mentioned, we're looking at a boost like we've never seen in what we call BOPIS, buy online, pick up in store. It's less restaurant specific and more like cross industry and cross genre, right? So people are purchasing and they want to bring home that experience. When it comes to the sizzle of dining in-house versus actually dining in-house these days, I have to echo the sentiment that those little touches tend to go a long way. I think we're finding a huge level of understanding from the at-home patron, and that they know there are sacrifices that are going to be made. So whether it's a favorite restaurant or something that they're trying new, they're going to be more accommodating to the fact that there are hiccups in place that maybe they wouldn't have even on the busiest of Friday nights. So what we've seen as really standing out, you know, obviously putting your best foot forward, to Chef's commentary on preparing for the trip as opposed to preparing for the plate, right? If you have something that's got a nice crusty exterior, is it going to survive getting thrown into an airtight packaging? You know, so taking that into consideration, but also the things like the little handwritten note. There are restaurants around here that are including little tea lights, just tiny candles for that at-home experience. And that thing that costs you 12 cents goes leaps and bounds for this person who is obviously facing some struggles as well, but is still spending their hard-earned dollar at your restaurant. The expectation there is that, you know, they're not expecting to get what they would get if they were sitting down at a table in-house, but they are excited to take out that food from the packaging, to put it on a plate, to set up a nice little, you know, cloth napkin, to have some disheveled silverware on the side that looks like it's been adequately used, and then just set aside. And then they're taking pictures and they're sharing. So one of the things I'm always advising business owners around the New England area is pretend that these people are going to plate and represent your business. We've actually seen on Yelp an increase in photo content of at-home settings, which is it's carrying forward your product, right? For the small and mid-sized business, it's carrying forward your restaurant's output, and you're relying on your customer to make it look good. So you have to give them all the tips possible and all the means possible to make it look its best as well. So we are seeing a boost in that type content, because even though they're not sitting in your dining room and it's not up to your Sue or your expo to make sure that everything's looking good coming out of the kitchen, that someone else is doing it for you. So make it as easy as possible, and also just, you know, prepare for the travel. I think that's what we've seen, is that it's a very understanding and accommodating consumer base and customer base out there, knowing the challenges that exist, but they still want to feel like they're at your business.
That's awesome. Thank you. It was great feedback. Chris, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I was going to add to the piece about the dining experience at the restaurants. So not all cities are locked down. People will be going out to eat. And one of the things that we've seen in research is that consumers now realize something they took for granted, a lot of things they took for granted at restaurants. And the number one thing on the list by far is socializing with family and friends. So that's something that the restaurant experience they want to do. How in time of COVID restrictions and social distancing can we still help enable that? Another piece, as you mentioned, is that people are tired of cooking, so not having to cook and having more food options is number 2. We ran through our 5 things that we can make in the course of a week, and so people are looking for that at restaurants. Yes, they want comfort food. Yes, they want familiar foods, but they are looking for different foods, different options, healthier options, and that idea of not having to cook. The biggest thing people are looking for, I think we know it, but we have to be ready for it, is safety has gone to the top over taste, over convenience, over everything else. And people are looking for what we call at Marlin Network, we call it hygiene theater, is that you can't just be a clean place. You have to have signage that tells them wiping things down all the time, things on the table. Some people are, everybody's having different reactions, and some people are having very strong, cautious reactions. And going out to dinner, they're already at a heightened level of nervousness. So even people not wearing masks is something that gets reported in social media now. That was the experience, is my server didn't wear a mask. So have the food taste great, have it look good, let people socialize and be comfortable, but find visual ways for people to have that number 1 safety need right now that was never on the list in the past, cleanliness and safety, and now it's at the very top.
For sure. I also would like to ask you, kind of in terms of spend, I mean, operators have a lot that they need to deal with right now that are different expenses with likely less coming in. What are some creative ways that they can kind of market what they're doing, whether it be safety or some of their cool promotions, with keeping that minimal marketing spend in mind?
Yeah, so the thing, some of the things that you can do is we've also learned that, and this has been referenced a little bit, consumers are looking for some things they weren't looking for before, and restaurants are offering them, but you have to let people know you are. If people think of your restaurant as a place that you order individual meals, consumers want family meals right now, so it's going to take some creativity in figuring out how to bundle, but figuring out how you do a whole prepared meal for that serves a whole family, or a meal kit is another thing, you know, kind of breaking down, deconstructing the items that you have and making it possible for the consumer to do a little work. They're going to be looking for things like these. They're going to be looking for new ideas. And so whether you use email to do that, or whether you take pictures and put it on social media. And another thing is to offer, when consumers come in or people on your email list, is offer them that appetizer in return for some kind of review or some kind of post or some kind of photo about what you are doing. And what we know from statistics as well is that it's really people's peers and friends and strangers on Facebook and Yelp and other places talking about a restaurant that make people interested. So do what you can to get your ideas and your menu items and your events to flow through other people's social media, other people's hashtags, other people's reviews, talking about what you're doing and what you're offering that feels special and very event oriented. Those are going to be the kinds of things that really get the word out there and promote and bring people in to keep business moving through the holidays.
For sure. Thank you. Chef Rob, I want to pick your brain a little bit. Many operators are shifting and adding menus that weren't their original core classic pre-COVID menu. What are some things operators should assess on their menu and focus on to make sure that they maintain their identity while also making sure they have the ability to do carry out and deliver, while of course watching those bottom lines?
So adapting, their core menu to things that perform well, for takeout and delivery, I think is, essential. Step one. Hopefully they've already sort of had that evaluation done. Some items just might not translate, to any sort of take home or delivery. So looking at different things that do really well in takeout and delivery models. So obviously pizza is probably the number one takeout item, and then you have handhelds and sandwiches and things like that, even bowl concepts. So they have a lot of range of where you could take a flatbread or a pizza, a sandwich or a bowl. So if you can look at your menu and sort of reconstruct a dish into a bowl or on a flatbread that you're sort of known for, and only have that available for takeout and delivery, make it a special thing particular for that. I think that's one way to do it and keep your identity. But then there's also something that I've seen with some success is where people have had done pop-ups within their own concept, where it was a very special, maybe very different from their concept, only available for takeout and delivery and only available till sold out. And then it generated sort of an urgency to participate in it. I got caught up in it myself, where like I didn't order in time, to get the empanadas that this restaurant had never done before and was never available before. So then I sort of was just waiting for them to come back, and I wanted to be in on that when they did. And then I ended up talking with the chef, and they had incrementally increased the number of available based on that first wave of interest. They had to turn away 25 people. The next time they had to turn away, they added 50 more, but turned away 50 more. So by the end of it, it was this hugely profitable, operation for them. A few different dishes, and they were pretty much guaranteed they were going to sell out. So it wasn't like they were carrying inventory or cost, and it kept customers interested in their operations. So, where you can fit your menu into takeout and delivery, again, do it really well, do it a little differently. Then, maybe even take a look at it at something completely different, and do pop-ups on occasion just to really drive interest.
And I would add to that, if I may.
Yes, please.
Most of the restaurants, you really need to be prescriptive with what you're offering, not just restaurant-wise. Your user base has changed, their frequency of use has changed. The lunch area downtown in City X is no longer a lunch area because the commuters have left that area. So don't just pivot to the standards, learn who your market is. Maybe you now need to be a breakfast place. Maybe you now need to be a meal kit place, a family meal replacement. Maybe you need to offer school lunches for the kids that are now in home or not in home. So you need to be pretty dynamic, and I think prescriptive with each individual market. I'm talking with markets, 200 to 400 different markets on the regular basis. And what I'm hearing from operators a lot of is they don't have the stability from day to day. Consumers are there one day, consumers are there not allowed the next. Staff is allowed to come in, staff has to quarantine the next. So this, unlike many other seasons, is unique for those reasons. So I would encourage operators to find stability where they can. Menus that are easily executable, supply chain items that are fairly stocked in most metro markets, and don't try to be too aggressive, because a lot of these consumers that are using you now are probably first-time users, and even though they've been in your trade area for some time, haven't had a reason to come see you yet or experience what you have to offer. But now that they're locked in or locked up, their frequency of use has, they've ordered from all their favorites a few times. So make sure you're doing something you can execute well.
Yeah, thank you. I was actually going to ask you, Mark, what are you seeing in terms of like very specific delivery trends? I know that with the virtual kitchens, that's what that is now, is kind of the delivery business. Is there a common pattern or a themed menu item that you're seeing as a success that you'd really tell operators to consider adding?
Well, I would say that as far as a cuisine type, every market has its own underserved areas, and the delivery platforms that I've been partnering with for several years now, we get feedback from those markets as to what's underserved as far as what you should introduce. But people are still people, and popular items are still popular. The difference is the time constraints for their meals have changed. The daily crunch is different. They may be wanting to heat more themselves. And if you are doing fully prepared items or meal kits, I forget who, might have been Chris, include the instructions. Make sure you include a note. Make it personal. If you're a local business, make sure you remind them you're a local business. But as far as menu items, pizza, burgers, tacos, bowls, chef mentioned bowls. I always encourage operators to consider bowls because they're durable and they travel well and they allow for a fairly infinite number of combinations. So you're not just bored of eating the same thing every night. No matter what you put on your pizza, it's still pizza if you offer it, 3 nights a week.
Who would have guessed several months ago that Panera would be in the grocery business? When you asked about what could people add to their menu, half gallons of milk and carrots and salads and It's really interesting. Or even non-food items. Some restaurants have offered, you know, hand sanitizer and wipes and things like that. So that's not traditionally with somebody's sandwich concept or pizza concept, but in a day of people kind of hoarding and trying to avoid making too many trips when they go out or just having things delivered to their home, I think it's really interesting to see how restaurants are expanding their concept. I mean, we're here to help you, not just we're a sandwich shop. So I think that kind of all bets are on the table if it feels true to what your concept is and connecting with that consumer. It's really interesting to see how that's blown out, and that the restaurant industry is kind of dipping into the grocery store industry's business as the opposite's been happening for several years.
And not just helping the consumer or the customer, but also helping a lot of times the small suppliers, the family-owned farms that, you know, were a foundation for the business model for the farm to table restaurants. They're now sitting and wondering how they're going to push their product out because they don't have direct retail channels to reach the consumers. Well, now when these restaurants turn into larders or they offer things straight out of their coolers, all of a sudden it gives new life to those small independent farms and suppliers that they were sitting idly by wondering when they would be able to get their product out in people's hands eventually. So I've definitely seen a pop of that in New England with regards to those small family-owned farms having a new channel to get their products out. Plus, it maintains a relationship between the restaurant owner and their supplier, and everyone seems to be happy. The larder phenomenon, it sounds very Brooklyn-y. It sounds very hipster, but all the hip and trendy restaurants are also larders now. So they're giving their farm fresh eggs out along with, you know, the meals that are being ordered.
It's completely true. I love that point, and I am a consumer of that. That one of my favorite restaurants sells an exclusive farm cheese now. It was only part of their sandwich, and now I can buy it from them. And so, really made a permanent repeat customer there. We touched upon this a little bit, but the value add LTO concept of the meal kits, I want to talk a little bit more about those. There's so many operators that do it, like the steakhouse, letting you take bulk meat to cook at home, or Dunkin' Donuts was doing some decorating donut kits and the pizza at home kits. What are some suggestions that you can offer in terms of these ideas and keeping them interesting, and being able to be sure you're capturing an accurate profit for them? And then I want to know a little bit of, do you think that this will continue into 2021 where it's worth an operator adding something like this if they weren't already doing it? And Damien, I'd love to start with your feedback on that.
Yeah, happy to. We actually, Yelp did a nationwide promotion trying to just buy into this kit phenomenon and highlighted local business owners who were offering kits. Now, this went beyond restaurants. It went into, you know, health and beauty. It went into retail, like clothing retail, jewelry design, et cetera. Kind of build your own jewelry kit, crafting, arts and crafting. It translated things like escape rooms into how you can build your own escape room or how you can make your own jigsaw puzzle at home. So we really took a cross-industry approach with regards to this thing that we were calling Yelp Kits. We weren't profiting from this or anything. We were just showcasing local businesses and kind of pitching them a challenge, right? Can you put something together that brings what you as a business provide and allow someone else to experience it at home beyond just doing takeout meals? It was very popular, and we had some real surprise standout winners with regards to kits that people just wanted to bring home. The idea of partially decorating a beer can label from a craft brewer really appealed to a lot of people. So even though there's not much of a kid in writing your name or drawing a little stick figure on a can, people are still drinking it, and that's what's important. So I think that with regards to the lastingness of it, you know, I think it was Chef Rob that mentioned this earlier. There is a certain amount of theater that comes along with going out to eat, and you are losing that theater. So any sort of interactivity that you have that people can bring home fills that void to some extent. Now, if we're back to normal and everything's at 100% capacity and people can go out and eat as much as they want, are there going to be as much demand for these kits? I do not believe so. That's anecdotal. I don't have the knowledge, or I don't have the data set for that. But what I do know is that the kits right now, in absence of that theater, are flying off the shelves. And anytime that people have ordered them, whether it's something as, you know, simple as sort of a decorate our own plain cruller donut or anything like that, or bring home some pizza and just build it at home, that is something that is satisfying a void that many people are feeling.
That's such great feedback. Mark and Chris and Rob, I'd love your thoughts on this too, if any of you want to share something. Sure. Yeah, Mark, go ahead.
So I've seen, the similar board games sent home, Uno decks. I've seen people pipe in whatever their musician that they normally have in their dining restaurant on a webcast or a Facebook stream so people can watch it and feel like they're at the restaurant. But the value perception, you're absolutely right. Once you remove the linen, the smell of smoke, once you remove all the ambiance, once you remove the ice cube shape and all the little intricacies that go into making at least a restaurant experience full service, you're really at a challenge for keeping that value perception there beyond just the cost of goods and the representation in the box that they get. But I think if you can rotate your offerings, involve the community in some way, especially I've seen some people have success with local goals, raising funds, contributing to organizations that are local in the 5 to 10 mile trade area. That works well.
So I'm going to take the angle that the horse is out of the barn. This stuff is here to stay. Consumers, we know in research, they don't think about grocery store versus restaurant. They think about how much time do I have to cook and what can I get as the answer. So when it comes to meal kits, it might have been a head scratcher a year ago and people resistant, but they've adopted all these delivery platforms. They've tried the mail order boxes of Blue Apron and Green Chef. And they have a lot of things they have to put in the trash can when they're finished. They've gone to grocery stores. My question out there for the world is, if you could choose a meal kit that was designed by and put together for you by a chef, or if you could choose one from a grocery store, name a grocery store, where would you rather get it from? I'm going to go for the chef every time, and that premium that you tend to pay for meal kits, I probably would put at the restaurant. And so I think it's, why your restaurant? Is it a signature dish? Is it a Chicago style pizza that I have no idea how to make that without your help? What are those special dishes that a restaurant has? Alinea, a super upscale multi-course restaurant that probably few people in Chicago had ever been to, suddenly became available to a lot more people because they did takeout. They weren't really meal kits, but the meal kit part was they sent blowtorches home with people, which you can't keep doing tablecloths and all that expensive stuff, but what is it that creates that special moment at a restaurant? And our statistics show that consumers, once the vaccine's out and once we quote feel safe and can go back to normal, there's a whole group of consumers that isn't going to do that right away. They still have some hesitancy. So how do we continue to reach them? How do we give the restaurant experience? I think that now restaurants have shown they can be a part of the meal kit phenomenon that continues to grow, and it's just a matter of how you maintain that relevance. And I think that local appeal will give an advantage too.
And just to add on to that, I mean, I do believe they're here to stay, and as long as you can make it and keep it incremental, to your business as things begin to recover to whatever that environment looks like moving forward, keeping it incremental, keeping it on brand, make sure it makes sense for who you are and what you want to continue to grow your brand to be, and keeping it simple within the scope of who your diner is. You want to make sure that they're successful with what you send them home and the task that you're giving them, so that they feel like that they enjoyed it and participated in it. I think like the blowtorch is an interesting example, but you need to know your guest and their adventure level. Alinea is a challenges diners when you sit in that dining room, but you want to make sure that it's an enjoyable experience, that they feel successful. It's efficacy with what was accomplished, so they have the courage to come back and try it again.
Sorry, go ahead.
Nope, you're up.
A statistic that I'll throw out, because this wasn't intuitive to me, but once I read it, it made sense, is that if you appeal mostly to boomers, the kind of 50+ crowd, and they don't order your meal kits over the holidays, I have the statistic for you why. It's just that apparently boomers are expressing less interest in having meal kits at the holidays and possibly other times. Maybe they feel more accomplished or more tradition of making things, but it's actually going to be the millennials out there, the 20 and 30 somethings, who are the most interested in meal kits. And then you have the Gen Xers kind of in between the two groups who are interested in getting components, so pieces of the meal. So maybe a certain side dish, maybe the turkey, whatever it is, but not the kind of soup to nuts meal kit. it looks like millennials are your best bet. If you cater to a younger consumer, the ones who like all the local larder options, that's going to be the place that you're probably going to hit a home run with those people who just want to have it done for them this holiday.
Chris, you know what's funny about that commentary? It totally aligns with sort of the culture that I'm seeing with regards to the Yelp community, and that they want to be able to brag that they made it, but they don't want to make all of it. So they buy a mostly made meal where somewhere where they need to reheat or do a buttery crumb topping, and then all of a sudden it becomes a handmade meal.
Absolutely, yeah. Finishing touch, that's it.
That's such good insight. It's interesting because I guess as much as I like to deny it, I suppose I fall in that millennial age bracket. I'm 34, but I am looking at the meal kits now for the holidays and didn't before, because now I used to go to restaurants and now I don't, because I'm about to see very high risk families. So I'm feeling very locked down. So I'm like, well, guess I can tap into that kit thing. So I wrote down that escape the room one and the blowtorch. I'm gonna look those up. You know, Chef Rob, Unilever has a fabulous, engaging Instagram presence. I'm becoming kind of a broken record of how often I say this to you, but, and for anyone out there who hasn't looked at Unilever's Instagram, I highly recommend you check it out. That whole team is sharing some really great kitchen tips and doing awesome live demos, and they are so fun to watch and try to cook along with. But I wanted to know from you, from a chef operator perspective, would you encourage restaurants to take something like that on to further generate interest in their menu and keep customer connection between visits?
You have to, if you haven't, discovered, your social media footing, that it's not too late. It's the best way to engage with your customers, particularly a loyal, customer base. And I follow, chefs that inspire me, around the country, and to see what they're doing and how they've, really needed to turn and pivot to speaking to more local, customers, as, if they were in a tourist town and the tourism has dried up, now they're really speaking to customers. They want to come back and be, repeat customers. So these are, household names that have needed to do this. So, if you don't have that household name to carry you forward, you really do need to connect, with your customers. And it's a great way to promote, the meal kits and, the specials, the pop-ups, the items only for delivery, and, to drive, there's a real, keeping yourself relevant, keeping yourself, top of mind with your customers is one thing, but it also can be incremental to your sales. It could be just the right post at the right time to capture someone's interest who had no intention of coming, and picking up anything from your operation, and you brought them in. You do that 5-10 times a week, spread that out over a year, and it can be, really, a substantial amount of income. I got caught up in it from a local restaurant, who's also, they make their own beer and spirits, and it was a hot day in the summer, and they just had, we have these beer slushies available at the barrel bar, and I was just like, I need that like now. So it was just like, told my oldest daughter, we watched the younger kids, got my wife, we went there, we had a couple cocktails sitting outside, ended up ordering food, and I had no intention of being there at that time that day, but I spent money there, I tipped my servers well, and I brought business. And if you just capture a few of those moments, you really can add to your bottom line, and help your staff along the way. So if you're not doing it, you need to be. If you're not comfortable with IG lives, there's just lots of different ways to promote your business, encouraging guests to participate. You can do contests on the cheap through Instagram and Twitter accounts. So it really is worth exploring. Find some folks that you think are doing it well, and then and see how they're talking. And I can't wait to get to Nashville, because I've been watching Sean Brock open 2 restaurants since the pandemic started, and he just keeps posting these photos of the food at Joyland and the Continental, and I'm just like, I can't wait so I can travel again. But he's speaking to that people who are in Nashville now, because their tourism is down. So it's the people who live there that he really needs to rely on now. And it's important to know that it's a tool that's available to everyone, and you need to be there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Damien, similar question for you. Can you talk a little bit about this and the impact you're seeing from operators and running social media engagement strategies?
Yeah, definitely. I think, Yelp is definitely one channel for social media, but it's hard for business owners to conduct dialogue there. It's more hearing from the consumers and maybe seeing individual responses and reviews. So when I look at social media profiles of small, mid-sized businesses, the ones that really stand out to me are the ones that are telling those humanizing tales. Hey, here's what's going on while business is sort of up in the air. Here's what's going on in my home kitchen. There's a restaurateur named Kathy Seidel. Seidel Hospitality Group has a really great restaurant in Boston called Salty Girl. It's one of the most popular on Yelp. She started a video series on Instagram that was called What's Cooking With You? And it was anyone from some of her regular customers to people on her kitchen staff to other chefs who ended up getting in the mix in and around Boston. We're just basically doing a, hey, here's my like down and dirty macaroni and cheese. This is my secret. This is what I'm making with it. And then she would air it on her Instagram or sometimes it would be, I think she dedicated an entire handle to it. And it was just telling the stories, right? Those humanizing tales are really resonating because behind every business are a team of people that make it happen. So sharing the stories of those people it's making an impact, and it's really tugging at the heartstrings a little bit and keeping people emotionally connected. I'm also seeing a lot of throwback content. Can't wait to see you again. By the way, here's that burger that you loved 3 months ago. There's a fine line between taunting people with what they can't have and just stirring those positive memories. But the most effective channels do that and do it well, taking their signature items and putting it on display. And to Chef's point, tapping into like current trends and saying, hey, remember the beer slushies? You're definitely going to want that again once things get back to normal or normal enough. You definitely want to use social to capitalize on those business pivots where you're trying something new, where you're opening up the larder, where you're doing a meal kit or anything that we've discussed prior. Definitely use that to get the word out because that's easy word of mouth. To the exclusivity thing about the empanadas that are only available once in a while. Experiment. And I think social lends so tremendously because people who are active on social media love that spontaneity of content and also that spontaneity and somewhat limited availability of product. So you're tapping into a perfect audience when you're saying there's only 20 of these, so move fast. It's not people who need 2 weeks worth of notice. These are people that want to know what's happening right now. And then also to go back to an earlier trend that I know that I think that Chris was talking about is cleanliness. It may seem like boring content, but at the end of the day, if you're talking a little bit on your social channels about the steps that you are taking to make a safe and clean environment for people to come back to, don't make it your full feed because then you'll get people falling asleep, but definitely spotlight that and use social to do it. As guidelines shift state to state, city to city, you should be responding and saying, this is what we're doing to meet what the governor just said, what the mayor just said, what industry experts are talking about, what Fauci's talking about. So if you are matching that in social media, which is as close to internet real time as possible, then you will see that will resonate with people who are teetering whether or not to stop by your business.
Fantastic.
I would just add one thing to that is when you engage in social, and Damien touched on it, like if someone comments on your post or a guest makes a comment, you have to follow up with interact with your guests in that space. You can't just like ignore them. Oh, we got like 10 comments. You need to reply back to those, even the negative ones. You don't want to start an argument in that space, but you do need to make sure you're engaging with people. If people take the time to post and recognize that they were following you and or notice that, you have to reply to it.
And it may be obvious, but I would say before you jump into any engagement with your consumer base on the social platforms, please do a little bit of housekeeping, as I think Chris mentioned earlier. Make sure your passwords are up to date. Make sure your hours of operation are correct. Make sure your menus are posted correctly. Make sure the order links that you're encouraging people to click on actually take them to somewhere that they can execute an order, and you can get a capture ratio from that. So everybody's got limited time and resources to some degree. Make sure you're using yours well.
Awesome. Thank you. Mark, you have a very fascinating world with the cloud kitchens. And before I even ask you this, I would love to know, is the term cloud kitchen, virtual kitchen, and ghost kitchen interchangeable? No. Okay, so
I
maybe
mean,
we should.
most
Right.
people would argue that they are, and
Okay.
essentially they all describe at least one fundamental commonality, which is they all essentially cater to guests that are not eating in the space.
Okay.
That said, if you slice and dice it a little bit, a ghost kitchen is usually referring to a warehouse space, like a few players that are out there that are subleasing space to individual operators. And again, no consumers in the space, but it's a ghost kitchen, almost like a commissary production facility where third-party delivery platforms are picking up at a single site, and they may offer some economy of scale where if you've got restaurant A and restaurant B and restaurant C all in the same food hall, the delivery platforms might give you a discount because they're not three individual orders. It all
Okay.
depends on the minutia of that. But generally speaking, no, they're not the same thing. Virtual kitchens can often be associated or similar to pop-ups. So people can, if you're a pasta restaurant, but your chef has this weird interest in dim sum or Asian foods, which isn't that weird, but if you're an Italian kitchen, it might be. The opportunity to do a ghost kitchen where you're not dredging your name or tampering with the reputation of your existing brick and mortar, but still exploring new supply chain options, new techniques, new equipment. Maybe you just found something liquidated, some equipment, some magic tool that you've been wanting to play with forever, and you're going to make a whole concept out of liquid nitrogen ice cream. Good for
Mhm.
you, but you're running a tapas restaurant, so figure that out. And
Yeah.
maybe the answer to that is a ghost kitchen called, whatever, cold ice cream, and that's how you launch that brand.
Gotcha. In these kitchen concepts, are you seeing kind of an uptick in the usage of them right now with COVID? Are brick and mortars kind of pausing their traditional location and pivoting over there?
That question is probably its own panel because
Yeah.
that answer has changed so much over just the past 8 months. I can
Okay.
say as of January last year, the delivery and home meal replacement and 3DP market was growing, and there were several reports that came out identifying aggressive growth. And then everyone got locked down, and the only option to eat was delivery. And the 100% growth, 200% growth, 300% growth went up even faster. And who uses it and the frequency of use, the boomer clientele who may never have considered it previously are now 1 to 2 uses a week in certain markets and certain uses. And that's a whole new cliche, but it's a whole new market for these people to play in. And I would say that, yes, absolutely. Things that people were playing with, that chef that was thinking about doing a live stream when he makes the special dish every Friday is now absolutely doing a live stream 5 days a week
Mhm.
because he needs to out of necessity. And really, what I would say to put it in the closest sense of capsulation is what everybody was doing has changed pretty much quarterly. So the first quarter that everyone was impacted the most, everybody was grabbing at everything. Look, we sell bleach and eggs and cereal and beer, and we'll cook it for you, and you can want. And they just grabbed at everything. And over time, those peaks and valleys, I think, have started to equalize. And
Mhm.
people who started at that stage have now started to find their groove. And my recommendation is partner with people if you can that already figured it out. I saw an advertisement the other day for a product on social media that involved a portable fire canister. It's kind of like a sterno, but for outdoor use, camping and purposes. And someone recommended a local marshmallow company that they should partner with. 2 weeks later, the sterno company or whatever it was is now partnered with the local marshmallow company, and there's a story and a narrative that benefits two companies now. And then they did a family approach where the company was started by two dads and so on and so forth. So there's a narrative. It came out of the blue, doesn't exist before, and now it's on its way to have an impact where it didn't. In our space, I would caution people to do what you do well and don't diversify so much that you do a lot of things badly.
Jillian, I was kind of shocked when I looked into this to find a survey that more than half of restaurant operators out there have used a ghost kitchen for some or all of its work. So it's grown in terms of penetration, who's using it. It used to be the food truck that helped restaurants get started. Now you've
Mhm.
got ghost kitchens. And now that the former Uber CEO has created a cloud kitchen concept that allows people to kind of access restaurant spaces like they access taxi cabs, that kind of blows my mind. DoorDash has their DoorDash kitchens. McDonald's, Kroger, Chick-fil-A, other restaurants are all using ghost kitchens, Starbucks in a way, because you can order ahead and just pick up. So again, what we found about COVID overall is that accelerated trends that were going on. So this, like meal kits and all, this is an acceleration of a trend that's going to continue to have momentum. Yes, some will try it and fall away from it, but for concepts that were constrained and strained for space, restaurants like Chick-fil-A that do tons of catering and it was messing with people in their in-store, I think we're going to see this kind of separation, this augmentation of options, not just for people who can't have a restaurant space, but for people who need more space.
Yeah, that's really good insight. And believe it or not, we just have 10 minutes left, so I want to jump into some of the questions that came through that are pretty fantastic. The first one actually is for Damien. Working for Yelp, you were probably exposed to everybody's wins and losses and ratings and reviews. What are some common do not do this that you've sort of seen in the space since COVID started?
Well, on the business owner side, I think this was touched on earlier, but responding to reviews now, especially if you find that, I mean, all our heads are spinning, but if you have the opportunity, the internet is now your dining room. So if someone wants to talk to a manager or speak with you in-house, then they're actually taking to your Instagram feed, they're taking to Yelp to write a review, good, bad, or indifferent. It is the new communication space. So don't ignore it. It will strike your customers as rude. And it will strike observers as rude because not only is it a dining room, but it's a dining room that's a 24/7 feed. So make sure that you are actively engaging in dialogue where you can. One of the free tools available to Yelp for anybody on their Yelp page is the ability to reply to reviews either privately or publicly. So do that. We always strongly suggest it comes straight from the top. If you're the business owner or the GM, make it your voice. Try not to farm it out to PR communication firms because those people may change. And then all of a sudden they're on a profile that says they're Rob W, but actually they sign it Janet L, and you're like, what's going on here? It seems very impersonal. So yeah, stick with the replies. I think as a whole, just maintaining that temperament of understanding that, and I say this year round, it doesn't matter if it's a pandemic or not, but you're going to get people who are just not in a good mood. It could be stressors external to your business. It could be folks who just didn't have a great experience because maybe the food didn't travel well or something to that effect, and they might have a negative experience, and that's okay. Look for trends that you could tie back to your direct operations and not something that just where somebody had an off evening. If you stay focused on the negative, you're gonna get drowned out. I call it the puppy baby situation, where 99 people see a new puppy that you have, and everyone's like, "Oh, that's so cute," and then you get one person who's like, "I've seen cuter puppies," and the only one that resonates in your mind for the rest of that day is that person who talked about your ugly dog. So try not to focus on the negative. Everyone is stressing out these days. In your response, be tactful, be cordial, address the situation, apologize, move on, invite them to come back. Always highlight, to Chris's point earlier, I would actually conversely say don't offer incentives for reviews. I think you get into a little bit of a sticky wicket there, but do acknowledge problems and do thank people who contributed great content. Hey, glad to hear you had a wonderful time. I'm so glad that the filet traveled well. And by the way, I saw the picture you uploaded to the Yelp site and it looks tremendous. That sort of stuff really resonates with people, and it shows that you care. So staying on top of those communications, of those dialogues, the diatribes that are being set up, I think it's probably paramount now more than ever. And then to also echo what Mark said, make sure your information is up to date. Yelp actually has free tools to show you, to demonstrate what you are doing on your page to respond to COVID restrictions. Is it mandatory that your tables are 8 feet apart, 6 feet apart? Do you only have outdoor seating? Are you doing takeout? Are you doing in-house? What is your seating percentage that you're abiding by? What are some of the standard, are you doing daily sanitizing and cleaning? That sort of stuff you can highlight for free on your Yelp page, so that instead of searching through reviews and seeing what other people say, people can go to your Yelp page and say, oh, this business is proactively doing this. As well as obviously making sure that all your takeout delivery links and that sort of thing are up to date. We actually strongly encourage, and this is coming from a representative of a company who does provide a conduit to third-party delivery, we are strongly saying call the restaurant direct always, if you can. See if they do in-house delivery, help them cut operating costs a little bit. keep the money in their pockets where possible. And this is, again, coming from a platform that suggests that you can also use delivery and use Yelp for delivery as well. So just keeping the dialogue going I think is paramount.
Awesome, thank you. This next question was directed towards Chris and Chef Rob. How can restaurants strengthen their core menu offerings while using holiday LTOs to drive new traffic?
Chef Rob?
So that I understand the question correctly. It's so how do you maintain your core menu offering, strengthen that, and as like LTOs might bleed off, those sales?
Yeah.
Well, I think taking your core and maybe reimagining it as something that can fall into those lines, like a meal kit, like if you're particularly known for an item, perhaps just sort of deconstructing it and having people reconstruct it in delivery or takeout, or just kind of curating a special menu, whether it's 3-course or something that's celebratory, but just uses your core menu. Just go in and sort of curate that those menu offers. Wine pairings or wine suggestions, if you don't have the ability to sell alcohol, goes a long way. And or just looking at things like that, sort of simple pairings and just keeping it top of mind by just repositioning.
Awesome, thank you. Chris?
One thing I'd say, don't fight it. Don't fight the holidays. I've seen for years how Ruth's Chris, they offer turkey and stuffing as takeout or dine-in at their steakhouse. They want to sell steaks. They probably make more money selling steaks, but maybe some people don't want to think about steaks on Christmas. The good thing is that the holiday is usually one day, and they're the days leading into and the days going out of. So now that people have tons of turkey and ham and stuffing and whatever they have, they're sick of it. They don't want the leftovers. They want your core. So how do you kind of pivot and be like in your promotion, get this turkey ham dinner, but then here's a coupon to come get X core menu the next day, remember us the day after, so that even if they don't order that takeout meal that was especially for Christmas, they're still going to want to use that coupon to come in the next day. So think about the holidays not as people wanting the same things every day, but different things on different days or around the holidays.
That's awesome, thank you. And then this last question is just kind of fun. Any fun ideas that any of you might have to sort of spice up that curbside pickup for especially those cold weather locations that are really limited now with having to have people inside that are really not comfortable? So any fun ideas on spicing up curbside pickup?
So those igloos that people are in now, and you can rent them for lots amount of money. Maybe those igloos can be places to kind of wait in your pods. So I'm just thinking creatively here. Is not everybody wants to dine in those places, but maybe it's a way to kind of stage people or have people wait, or make it something different.
There's an operator that was running, it has a huge parking lot, so they have a drive-in movie screen, so it's showing some holiday movies as people kind of drive up and wait for their numbers. It's just kind of a cute idea. I think nowadays that it's like there's no bar, it's whatever goes, and people are open to creativity, I think, is the game here. So we
dress up as elves and Santa Claus delivering.
Definitely.